Okay, so picture this. Inside you, right now, there's this incredible, bustling system. Think delivery trucks, emergency repair crews, even a security force. What is it? It's your blood. And in this explainer, we're going to dive into what happens when that whole system starts to break down. Let's get right into it.
It's useful to think of your blood as a river of life, always flowing, always delivering vital supplies. So what happens when that river gets blocked or polluted? Well, the consequences can ripple out and affect every single part of your body. Let's start with the basics.
To really get a handle on the problems, we first need to meet the team. Our blood is made up of these incredible, highly specialized parts, and each one has a job that is absolutely critical. Let's break it down with a simple analogy. Your red blood cells, they're like a massive fleet of delivery trucks, and their only cargo is oxygen. Your platelets, they're the emergency repair crew, ready to patch up any leaks at a moment's notice. And your white blood cells, they're the security force, constantly patrolling for invaders. Just about every disorder we're going to talk about today comes down to a problem with one of these key workers.
So let's start with those oxygen delivery trucks, the red blood cells. When this part of the system breaks down, we run into a huge issue with our body's fundamental fuel supply.
I mean, think about it. Every single cell in your body, from your brain to your toes, needs oxygen to work. And the red blood cells, or RBCs, are the only way to get it there. It's a non-stop, life-sustaining delivery service.
And when that service gets disrupted, maybe there aren't enough trucks or the trucks themselves are faulty, that condition has a name. It's called anemia. Your body is, in essence, being starved of the oxygen it desperately needs to create energy. Now, anemia isn't just one single thing. It really boils down to two main issues. First, you could have a production problem. The factory, which is your bone marrow, just can't make enough healthy red blood cells. Or second, you could have a destruction problem, where your red blood cells are being wiped out faster than your body can replace them. Let's look at an example of each. A classic production problem? That would be iron deficiency anemia. You see, without iron, the factory that makes red blood cells just, well, it grinds to a halt. This leads to the symptoms you might expect, right? Fatigue, looking pale, but it also causes some really strange ones, like spooning of the nails. And then there's this thing called pica, which is this bizarre, overwhelming craving to eat things that aren't food. We're talking ice, dirt, you name it. It's wild. Researchers have a theory that it might have to do with how a lack of iron messes with enzymes in your brain.
Okay, now for a destruction problem. This is a case where red blood cells are being produced, but they're flawed right from the start, which leads to them being destroyed way too early. A major example of this is sickle cell disease.
You have to understand, healthy red blood cells are basically engineering marvels. They're soft, they're round, and they're incredibly flexible, designed specifically to squeeze through the tiniest blood vessels in your body without causing any trouble.
But in sickle cell disease, a genetic mutation causes them to completely deform. They become rigid, sticky, and shaped like a sickle or a crescent moon, especially when the body's under stress. And this new shape? It's a total disaster for blood flow.
So here's what happens. Those sticky, hard cells start to get stuck. They cause these horrible log jams in the blood vessels. The medical term is a vaso-occlusive crisis. This completely cuts off oxygen to parts of the body, leading to episodes of intense, sudden pain, organ damage, and something called dactylitis, which is a painful swelling of the hands and feet. It's often one of the very first signs of the disease in little kids. All right, next up, the emergency repair crew, the platelets. When they aren't working the way they should, even a tiny little cut can spiral into a really serious problem.
Platelets are pretty amazing, actually. They're just tiny fragments of cells, and they're always circulating in your blood, just waiting for a signal that there's been a breach. The second you get a cut, they rush to the scene and start clumping together to form a temporary plug.
A lot like anemia, clotting problems usually fall into two main buckets. First, you might just not have enough platelets to begin with. That can happen in a condition called ITP, where your own immune system attacks and destroys them. Or you could have plenty of platelets, but you're missing the special proteins, the clotting factors, that act like the glue that makes the plug strong and stable. And that's exactly the issue in hemophilia.
So in a hemophilia, the body just can't form a stable clot. Now, this doesn't mean you bleed faster than someone else, but you bleed for much, much longer. This can lead to what's called ecchymosis, which are those large, deep, significant bruises, and one of the real hallmarks of the condition, hemarthrosis. That's painful, damaging bleeding inside the joints, especially the knees and elbows.
And finally, let's talk about the body's security force, the white blood cells. What happens when the very guardians of your system turn against it? Your white blood cells, your WBCs, they are your personal army. Their whole job is to identify and destroy bacteria, viruses, and any other foreign invaders that try to get in. They are absolutely essential for our survival.
Well, leukemia is a cancer of the blood-forming tissues, including the bone marrow. And what happens is the marrow just goes haywire. It starts pumping out enormous quantities of abnormal, immature white blood cells called blast cells. The problem is, these cells are totally useless. They can't fight infection. And worse, they begin to take over everything.
This creates what doctors call a crowded house effect. It's literally like a party that's gotten way out of control. These cancerous blast cells multiply so fast, so aggressively, that they just physically push out all the healthy, functioning cells in the bone marrow. So suddenly there's no room for red blood cells, right? And that leads to anemia and fatigue. There's no room for platelets, which causes bleeding and bruising. The white blood cells that are there are faulty, so you get infections. And the bone marrow itself, it gets so packed, so overfilled, that it causes intense bone pain.
So with all these different things that can go wrong, how do doctors even begin to figure out what's happening and what can actually be done about it?
Well, the investigation usually starts with a complete blood count, or a CBC. It's a really simple blood test that just counts up all the different cell types. If something looks off there, a doctor might order a bone marrow biopsy, which gives them a direct look at the factory itself. And for genetic conditions like sickle cell, there's a special test called hemoglobin electrophoresis that can spot the faulty proteins.
And this really shows how treatments are targeted to the specific problem. For thalassemia, that's a kind of anemia where the body makes an abnormal type of hemoglobin, patients need regular blood transfusions and also treatment to get rid of excess iron. For leukemia, chemotherapy is the main tool used to destroy those cancerous cells, and for something like hemophilia A, patients get infusions of the exact clotting factor they're missing, in this case, factor VIII.
In the end, the health of this internal river, this complex ecosystem, it really does reflect the health of our entire body. It's an incredibly delicate balance, and understanding it is just so important for protecting our overall health. Thanks for joining this explainer.